And good evening. This is Amrita, the creator of Breaking Boxes. And tonight I have a really awesome guest. This young man is just kicking goals, getting on the court, and really living life to its fullest. So I'd like to introduce you to Adam Doyle Smith. And Adam is a social mentor, a person living with autism, and has significant lived experience with social isolation, social awkwardness, introversion, and Adam, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on for you?
Hi, Amrita. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm looking forward to this interview. I've sort of grown up pretty much my whole life with really strong social struggles. I've had a lot of communication issues as I was growing up, and a lot of sort of difficult skills that really made conversations with people really hard. So when I was in year 6, I lost my 2 best friends. They pretty much told me that they'd had enough and didn't want to be friends anymore. That sort of shattered my world. And then from there on, became extremely socially isolated, what I call social paralysis, and I became more and more introverted. So I jumped into my career and focused heavily on my skills, blocking people out more and more. And when I was turned about 25, I decided this is the point where I really need to do something about this. I've been learning about this for years, doing all the theory and study, but it's time to make a physical change and take action on this.
Grade 6, how old were you, Adam, about that time?
Grade 6, I would have been about 11 or 12 years old.
Okay, so they're pretty formative years. I mean, you're coming into, teenage, the realm of the teenager, and you get dumped by your 2 best mates, right? That's pretty heavy going.
Yeah, it sucked at the time.
That just hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's in that conversation, all I can remember was I couldn't speak. I couldn't sort of say anything to them. I was pretty much like breaking down on tears on the inside, and I just said, okay, and just watched them walk away. And that's all I could do, was just stand there and watch them sort of disappear into the distance.
Yeah.
And then the rest of primary school, I felt too embarrassed to even talk to anyone else about it, because they were friends with everyone else too. So yeah, the escaping away was it felt like the only option. It probably wasn't, but it felt like it.
Yeah, no, I completely get you. That's painful. All right. So what other experiences sort of caused you to become, introverted and led to that sort of situation, Adam?
There's a lot that's happened over the years, but probably some of the bigger situations. When I was about 14, I lived in Brisbane. I still do, but my mother's sister, she's down in Melbourne, and she just passed away from cancer. So we traveled down there for her funeral, and I saw my mum as like this sort of heroic, stoic figure that I absolutely admired her. And we were and I've never seen her cry unless it was like a physical pain that she was going through. So we were at the funeral hall, we're sort of walking up the steps, and there's all of our friends and family, or mum's sort of friends and family side in there. And we walked into the place, but I sort of felt like an outcast, like I pretty much didn't know anyone, so I didn't speak to anyone. So I put all my attention and focus on mum and thought, as long as she's there, I'll be okay. So the funeral starts. I'm sort of looking at mum. I can barely see over all the people's heads in the crowd. And I'm watching her as this guy's sort of talking and giving the ceremony. And she goes from like standing up tall and proud, and her body language starts to drop. All of her facial expressions sort of drop down. And I'm just sort of watching her just go deeper and deeper into tears. And she just starts crying. And at this point, I thought I was an emotional robot. Like I couldn't feel a single thing. But in that moment, it shattered me like glass, and I just broke down in a ball of tears. And I'd never felt anything like that in my life. I'd never felt that kind of like emotional connection and real sort of understanding of what someone else is going through. So basically, from that really opened my mind that life isn't just about words and about being the smartest or being able to do something well. It's really at the core. It's about being able to have a deep connection with someone, being able to feel what other people feel, and really spend time with each other. So that was like an opening to that door.
Yeah, okay. So, and then once that door had been opened, was it still difficult for you to interact socially with people? Did you make new friends after that experience, or what happened socially for you then?
That was sort of more like an awakening to it. It was still even for the next sort of 5 to 10 years, I still didn't understand how to, I still wasn't any good at sort of talking to people. But it made me realize that, okay, there is something there. There is there's more meaning to life, and there's a reason why people talk to each other beyond just words. So
Yeah.
it made me start chasing that direction.
So I'm hearing that you wanted to connect with people, communicate, be in groups, but it still wasn't easy for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like going through high school, I managed to get involved. I was invited into a lot of different social groups because everyone was in their own little sort of cliques. And I'd only spend sort of 10, 15 minutes in each place. So I wouldn't say too much. I'd stay very quiet. I was very careful on what I said because I'd been pushed out from the last friend group. So I thought if I say the wrong thing here, I'm gone for good. So I'd only spend just enough time that I was experienced in it, and then go to the next group so I wouldn't be sort of called out for not being giving value to the group, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. And then you said to me that you went into your hobbies, right? You developed skills. Tell me a little bit about what you did. So you're protecting yourself from these situations. You're not sure. You're fearful. Yeah. And then you start to become really introverted. Tell me a little bit about that period. That what did you do, and what did it feel like, and how did it play out in your life?
Yeah. So I grew up around cars. I like classic cars, like muscle cars, all those kind of things, as well as playing guitars and getting involved in music. So I found that when I was working on those skills, working on getting better at sort of playing instruments and working on like mechanics in cars and like doing body work, I'd get praised for that. I'd be told from my father and from other people that, oh, you're doing a real good job. So I'd sort of hyper focus on that and almost sort of block the rest of the world out. So it became like a feeling of escapism that when I was working on the cars and sort of putting things back together, um, the rest of the pain would drop away, and I didn't have to think about anything else, and the rest of the world didn't matter. I was safe, and I was accepted as that person. But over time, I sort of got into a career, an apprenticeship in that, and started a business around cars. And over time, sort of realized that people would give the compliments, they'd have the conversation just long enough to understand what's going on the project. And then as soon as it came to more of like a personal conversation, they'd drop away and disappear. So I figured,
There's
well,
a very deep connection happening for you there.
yeah,
Yeah.
it sort of like broke the connection. And it was like, well, they find the work important, but I'm not important in it. So
Yeah.
if I'm not important, then why am I still doing this?
Yeah, and isn't that? I think that's just something that fundamental to every human being. I think we all just want connection. We're social creatures, yeah. So all we really want to do is feel loved and feel like we're part of a group. And I think that just really comes down to our survival instinct. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like,
you don't get that though.
yeah, challenge being on the outside. That's
Yeah.
where we think back like a few hundred years ago, where we were all in tribes, we're all living in the forest, and the one thing that we were there for is to care for and protect each other.
Yep.
And we've developed into this world where we've got all this technology, we've got houses and buildings and vehicles to carry us around, but we're still living the same experience in life, which is to protect and care for each other. We've just got more stuff to distract us all around the place.
Okay. So then you're in like a world of emotional pain. Yep. Your two best mates have walked out on you. So much has happened in your life. You've become introverted, isolated, socially awkward, like you don't understand, feelings. And then you've gone, what? Enough's enough. I'm done with this. Like, what happened then?
Through a couple of experiences, both going along to my mother's funeral, and there's a few other sort of major change points throughout the sort of experience of my life. I began to sort of wake up more and more to there's something more to this. I didn't understand what social connection was, what a sort of deep emotional feeling was, but I ended up getting into a relationship with a girl. We were dating for about 2 years, and she was was willing to go through the frustrating conversations of explaining in very fine detail of her feelings, her experiences, how the words I talked to her, what that sort of made her feel. And she was able to basically communicate to me what it was like to feel emotions. And the more that she talked to me about this, the more I thought I've got to become more of this kind of person.
Yeah, right. Okay. It's interesting. I was just thinking through that as you were speaking, because, like, where, at what point do we actually start to understand emotions and, understand what other people are feeling. And, for you, as a late teen or as a young adult, that had to be explained to you. You didn't pick that up. You didn't get that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
when it comes to conversations, the experience of it is like all the focus and attention and observations are all on the words that are being said. So all the emotions that are felt and the message behind the words, all those things are being ignored. So when it comes to talking to someone else about that, you're saying the words that sound correct and they sound all logical, but it might be in a very critical or hurtful way. And so you think, well, I said the right thing, but then the other person sort of is sort of pissed off, or they break down in tears, or sort of don't want to talk again. And you're sort of left there sort of confused, going, I don't understand what happened. Why aren't they sort of talking to me anymore? And
Yeah.
seeing that over and over again, it's sort of you see the reactions, but until you talk to someone else about it and really sort of gets feedback on how your communication's coming across, it's very difficult to become aware to it.
Cool. Okay. So that's some really intense insight into what it's like living with autism. As a person who is not autistic, for me, I don't know, you just pick that up when you're, I don't know, going through, I don't know, all your different social situations. And from a very young age, you start to sort of learn what's appropriate and what's not, but you're not picking up those cues. You're not getting that. So, Adam, we're skipping through a few years. So you're now about 25 years of age, right? You've got your own business that is doing okay, but probably could do a lot better. And tell me what happens then. Where do we go from here?
So I was very, very lucky just to cross paths with a lot of very skilled and very intelligent people. One of the people that joined into the business, he was an extremely good communicator, very emotionally intelligent, and was willing to spend the time with me also to sort of chat and go, hey, when you said this thing, when you reacted like this is how it made this person feel. This is how it would make me feel. And that's most people won't have that kind of interaction though. So very sort of helpful things were I decided to find experiences that forced me out of that comfort zone, forced me out of my sort of inner shell. So I went along to improv classes. Probably one of the most terrifying things I've done. So it's forced into talking to people and saying things that I haven't thought out deeply. So I was forced to mess up and make mistakes. And one of the sort of traits of autism is like perfectionism. You've got to get things right, and you can't say the wrong thing because you'll get in trouble for it. And it's that deep feeling inside that you'll be like, again, sort of pushed out of the group, or just sort of removed and not allowed to be spoken to again. So improv classes were definitely a good one. Another experience I went through was going out to the city and just being in places where there were a lot of people. Because even just being around people, when you're sort of in that sort of social paralysis state, it just feels incredibly uncomfortable. It just feels like deep anxiety. So going into the middle of the city, into bars, into clubs, and just sitting down and sort of watching and observing what's going on, it's a terrifying experience, but it changes the perspective. It makes it go, well, you can listen into conversations, you can overhear sort of what's going on around, and start to see that most people aren't talking about detailed things. They're talking about emotional experiences. And through those, you sort of learn by osmosis in a way. You learn by just observation and just being in that environment. And you start to, it takes a long time, but you start to change and adapt because people start conversations with you. So basically, any experience, any situation that you can force yourself into where other people are guiding you through that journey and other people are starting the conversations with you so that you don't have to negotiate with yourself to start it, because it's 99% certain that you won't sort of make it through. I wouldn't make it through. So it's a very difficult sort of wall to sort of break through.
Okay, so when you're starting to get into these social situations and you're putting yourself out there, you're making yourself uncomfortable. Is there a little bit of a segue into this? So, like, I'm kind of guessing that you probably just didn't jump into a bar and start wanting to socialize. How did you step yourself into it?
My personal experience going into it, I went through a lot of small stages. Starting the business, that created a lot of conversations where it was about technical topics, but with a lot of different people. So I could focus on the technical side, not have to worry about the emotions. But because I was in conversations with people, I was forced to make like little changes going along. Still made a lot of mistakes, but it was sort of just getting more and more experience. Other small things were going through the shopping center and just ordering food and speaking to service people. Then it's also something where it's still task based. It's still like it's a requirement to go and do those things, but you're also experiencing that conversation in small amounts, and you've got a time limit on it. So anything where you can like guarantee that this conversation is going to end in 30 seconds or in a minute, but you get to have that experience, have that conversation, and just learn that little bit more while you sort of still get more comfortable with it is sort of a good path to go.
So Adam, I'm looking at you, dude, and I'm like, you're a pretty snappy dresser. You've got the hair, you've got a bit of a look to you, right? So
Okay.
that's to me that's a hallmark of somebody who is actually quite socially connected, someone who actually cares about the way they look, and someone who has a little bit of fashion sense. And so tell me how that played out for you.
I've had a lot of influences from different places. They've all been like small changes that have made an impact. I,
Were
I
you
kind of
always such a snappy dresser, or was this something that you had to learn?
started off dressing terribly. I'd wear shirts with holes in them, and my hair would be sort of looking all sporadic and like Albert Einstein. And pretty much didn't sort of give any thought or care to what I'd wear, as long as it sort of was legal and sort of covered. It was it could be sort of dirty, sort of 3 days old, and didn't matter. Over time, some of the small influences were like I loved car design, and the more I sort of got into drawing and designing things, I started to pay attention to details. So I think of like, okay, how's this collar sit and all these kind of things, and as well as just things like watching movies where someone would get a lot of attention in the movie, like James Bond. Be like, okay, why is he getting such attention even before he starts the conversation? And generally, it's like he's wearing like this fine suit, and he looks like super cool, and he walks in with a good strut, and he's sort of getting the attention, and sort of you can see he's got a higher status. Sort of there's something different about him before he even starts speaking. I thought, well, that's something I like. This one of the autistic traits is you become very detailed focused. You start to hyper focus on sort of visual things and audible things. So that's something I can change. That's something I can get really good at. Is okay, I can look at hairstyles, look at sort of the sideburns and where they sort of sit, and look at all the visual changes, proportions, and make those sort of better and better.
And did you
And
find
then,
that your experience when you sort of got your hair sorted from being, Albert Einstein to something that looked really, quite attractive,
yeah,
and, changed your clothes and all that sort of stuff? Did you
yeah,
find that you were getting more attention? You were getting more people wanting to be around you? What was the experience there?
loads. Yeah, I went from going from people would sort of avoid me and look at me like I'm gonna like rob them or steal something off them, to I walked into a car workshop while they were having a sort of demonstration day, and they're putting on a display and all that. And I walked up to the very back of the shop because I was looking at the tools, and there's two guys there from one of the other clubs. They said, "Oh, do you own the place?" I looked at them like a bit of surprised face. I thought, "No, you got the wrong impression here," but I like the compliment. So it
Yeah.
was they started the conversation, and it set a different expectation. It changed how the people sort of would look at me, and that also, because they were looking at me different, it made me change the way I interacted with them as well.
Yeah, that's really impactful. So where did you learn to dress? Where did you learn to, where'd your style come from?
Mentioned before, looking at a lot of movies and just seeing the way that people dressed in movies where they'd get a lot of attention. There's a few books on sort of dressing smart and how to design a suit, how to sort of wear sort of fitted clothes. And I guess a lot of it was just sort of going to sort of clothing shops and trying something on. I'd sort of buy something, wear it for 6 months, absolutely hate it, but wouldn't want to buy more clothes. So I just sort of wear it. And then over time, sort of keep looking at it over and over again and go, why doesn't this look good? Is it the color? Is it the sort of fit of the collar? And it's just that attention and just an experience of just seeing it all the time and wanting to make it better. So I think if they're good at social skills, they'll want to do everything that's in their power to sort of get better at it. And if clothing is one of those things, they'll start to look at what other people are wearing, and they'll start to pay attention to the details of what colors are sort of stand out to them. And so the things that you enjoy are generally things that other people will enjoy to some extent too.
And as far as making change go, I think just changing your clothing is actually a pretty easy thing to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the fastest ways to really get a strong reaction and a strong initial good experience from other people.
Yeah, look, as a female, I would 100% agree with that. There's a big difference at looking at a guy that's, not got his hair done and looking pretty dirty and rough, to looking at someone who's, that actually looks like they want to take care of themselves and has some self-respect. That kind of, I actually care enough about me to do my hair, to, put on a nice clean shirt, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those, having a nice haircut, wearing plain colors, but a fitted sort of clothing to your body. Those sort of two changes by themselves will make sort of more difference in the shortest period of time than probably anything else.
Yeah. All right, Adam, tell me a little bit about how you've gone from being a person that was, socially isolated, socially awkward. You've now started making some changes. You started putting yourself out there. You've got some coaching. You've been to improv classes. You've changed your clothes. Yeah. And now you're sitting here talking to me, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting here talking to me as a social mentor. I mean, that is just a full 180, right? Okay. Why? Why are you doing it?
Growing up with all the experience I've gone through, the sort of light level autism, ADHD, having sort of a slight speech impediment where I'd speak really, really fast and blur all the words together. And just going through all those years of frustration, just not understanding why conversations weren't working. Why I could watch someone at school across the room or going to a party, and they made it look so damn easy. Like they didn't even think about it. It was just like it came naturally to them. But knowing that we're all human, we're all able to do similar kind of things. And to have such a strong contrast between I really suck at this and I can't do it at all, to that person's just, they live that life and it's just easy for them. I figured, well, if I've gone through this suffering and pain, I can't be the only one. Other people have, and the more I sort of speak to people, the more I sort of see the sort of pain and suffering they're going through as well. If I can make a small difference in their life in any kind of way, with a communication, with how they see conversations, and just how important having good conversations is in both their personal life relationships as well as with work, just being able to enjoy more of their job and not have the troubles of the sort of the sort of fights that go on within sort of businesses, and just it affects every single part of our life across board. And there's nothing else that has a bigger change in our life in every way than communication.
Adam, so one of the techniques that you were telling me before off camera was called A.B.T. And I had to quickly look this up because it's not something I was familiar with. But A.B.T means what? What does it stand for?
A.B.T is an acronym for and, but, therefore.
And when I was researching it before, I actually learned that Randy Olsen, who's the creator of South Park, actually created this, and it's all about telling good stories. Yeah. So I'm going to read this. I just want to read this little bit that I found before, if that's okay. Just basically explaining what it is. So, and but therefore template is the key behind every good story. Okay. So, by the way, there's also a TED talk on this. I'll put the link down below so people can have a look at it. We might even put the link to Randy Olsen's book if people want to follow that up. So the A.B.T format provides context, creates conflict, and offers resolution in your narrative. The framework also extends beyond a literal storytelling. Anyone trying to communicate their ideas effectively to a wider audience can benefit from it. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to let the audience read on later on if they want to. I won't read the whole thing out. But tell me about how you used A.B.T to help with your social situations.
So after a lot of sort of research or understanding and experience with the sort of challenges I had in conversation, came to realize that the way our sort of minds work, the way our brains sort of understand the world is through story. They call them paradigms. That every single sort of idea that we have, it's a story about something, whether it's a story about how relationships work or how what we should eat and why we should eat it. They're all sort of small stories. And as what the sort of idea with autism is that we sort of become like fact and detail oriented. So when you start talking to other people with facts and details, it becomes very boring and we switch off very quickly. So it took a long time to go, okay, stories are important, and to realize that the only time that we actually have like deep and meaningful conversations is when we are sharing stories with each other.
Adam, when you were learning to communicate, right? Take me through what a conversation would sound like or be like in the mind of a person living with autism. So how would that sound if you were just to give me any story you like?
Mm-hmm.
How does it sound?
So it basically sounds like speaking in dot points. Like you're just speaking the point facts in the shortest possible way. So say like an experience of going to the shops, getting a drink and coming home again. It might just be something like, I was getting thirsty, so I got up and I wanted to go to the shops, and then I got an Uber to the shops, got a drink of Coke. They didn't have what I wanted there. I wanted a solo. So then I got that, jumped in the Uber again, and then came home.
Yeah. So very, very dry, very factual, really not that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And now give me that same story using the and but therefore framework. How does it change and how does it flesh out? And how does it that framework have me wanting to connect with you and listen to you speak?
Mm-hmm. So just a bit of context first. The and but therefore framework describes and is describing the context. So just like painting a picture of a scenario. The but is the problem and the thing that makes you go, oh, what's going to happen here? And therefore is like the resolve. How did it actually turn out after the problem? So it makes you like, you calm down and you sort of relax again. Yeah. So an example with the A.B.T. like storytelling method would be like, it was back in summer and it was about 30 degrees. I was sweating bullets sitting at home, getting ready for my mates to come over and watch a movie. And I heard a knock on the door. They were ready to come inside and sort of sit down and enjoy themselves. And so we all sat down around the couch, and one of my mates turned to me and he asked me for a drink. I started to like get real worried inside. My eyes got real dilated and big. So I realized I got nothing in the fridge, nothing at all. And I thought, well, I've got to get something for him. So I ran out the back, called an Uber, went down to the shops, grabbed a pack of 12 ones, and raced back to the apartment again, and walked in through the door with a with a smile on my face and looking like a hero. I thought that's saved it just in time. And it would continue on, and you could go into a lot of different sort of other descriptions with it. You're just sort of like creating problems that have happened in there, and just describing it through like a whole experience.
Yeah, and that is just so much more engaging. And, it's a story I want to listen to as opposed to the factual dot points, which is great if you're trying to describe, I don't know, maybe some plumbing parts or something. But if you want me to engage with you and you want me to hear what's going on in your life and you really want me to focus and be there with you, then the story is just, really essential, isn't it?
Yeah. It changes it from being like an instruction manual and where you sort of just going through the order list to actually feeling what someone else is going through. Because that's really what a story is about, is sharing the experience, how you sort of feel, what you saw, what it sort of made you think about, and giving that whole sort of situation to someone else.
So, Adam, what I'm hearing in a lot of the way that the examples that you've given and the things that you've learned, I'm really feeling a sense of empowerment. Like I'm really feeling that sense of, somebody who was socially isolated and introverted and really emotionally suffering to somebody who's, transformed themselves. So, Adam, let's just say I'm a person living with autism. I'm socially isolated for either maybe cultural reasons or I'm just introverted. And I'm looking for a mentor. I'm looking to change my life the way that you've changed your life. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work? What would you do to help me? How do I become empowered to change?
Yeah. So if someone going through that experience, if they found someone like myself, the role that I sort of would play is to really sort of deeply listen to them and find out the exact what they're going through individually. So everyone's a little bit different. Everyone has different situations they've gone through, and they have sort of challenges in different areas. They really want to sort of find out their story and ask them questions to help them talk. A lot of the challenge of growing up with autism is, and just sort of general sort of struggles with social skills, is you're generally sort of rejected and sort of shut down. People sort of stop you from talking. So if you can just start that sort of journey of helping them talk, helping them share their own story, and guide them through that process, that'd be where it all starts. From there, would go into, it could be just depending on what their goals are and what they're looking for out of it, whether it's they want a better relationship, getting a sort of girlfriend, boyfriend, or if they're looking for a job and career and sort of changes in that area. We'd just look for what exactly would suit their sort of scenario. So whether that's going out shopping and helping them sort of find a suit or find clothes for them, like the feeling of wearing sort of nicely fitted clothes and a suit, it makes you stand different. It makes you feel different. So just going out and having that experience by itself can be a radically changing thing. Then we can go into the next levels of it, of having a lot of sort of personal conversations just back and forth, starting off with text messages, then maybe over the phone, and guiding them step by step into situations where they're in group conversations alongside me, and then eventually into conversations with other people by themselves. So it's a stage by stage journey. Some people can progress through it really fast. Some people want it sort of just tiny bits at a time, just depending on how they feel with it.
So, Adam, anytime that we're, learning new skills and testing them out, there's always some little mishap or something that doesn't go quite right, right? Have you got any little funny stories you can share with us?
Yeah, there's probably a couple there. One of them, this is only a few weeks ago. So I'm self-conscious at the best of times. Even though I'm sort of going through this and getting more confident, I still care, think a lot about what other people think of me. So I went to the gym, but I was wearing dress pants that day because I'd just been
Dress
to an
pants at
event.
the gym, Adam. Is that what you said?
Yep.
You're wearing dress pants.
I was wearing dress pants.
Mate,
Yep.
that is next level James Bond
Chinos.
style, I reckon. Right,
Looking
so sorry
stylish walking in.
for interrupting. You were wearing dress pants at the gym. Got it.
Wearing dress pants at the gym, so I was looking stylish, looking fine. I thought it'd be okay to wear those instead of changing into the sports shorts. So I went over and decided to do a leg day. So I went over to the rack and I saw this pretty girl there. I thought, I've got to load this up heavy. I've got to try and impress her. So I loaded up. I've got the bar of her back, and about 3/4 of the way through the squat, I heard this, and like the bottom of my pants all blew out. So I stood up faster than a rocket. My face turned bright red like a chameleon, and put the bar down and walked straight out of there. And I thought, I probably can't talk to that girl again.
Adam, just as we're winding up our conversation tonight, what do you really want people to know? What do you want to leave? What message do you want to leave for people?
What I'd love to share with the world is that the biggest struggles that we go through in life, through mental health, through the physical sort of suffering, generally almost always leads back to communication. That we've been rejected, pushed away, seen as not good enough in our life. We're not worthy. We're not sort of, we don't deserve the experiences or the conversation that we have. So by the more we sort of focus on our conversations and just practicing that skill over and over again, our whole entire life will change in every possible way, both through relationships, through work, and pretty much across board.
Yeah, that's really key. And not only that, I think that when you are more comfortable with yourself, then it has knock-on effects, flow-on effects to the rest of the community. You're not just an individual anymore. Now you become part of the group. And when we move from a place of individualism to a group kind of mentality, where we're all lifting each other up, we're all supporting each other, we're all helping each other, then everybody does well. And that is just so important from, a human relationship and a human health and well-being aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, we sort of all win together, or when we sort of by ourselves, we sort of suffer and shrink and fade away. So the more we can get into those situations, the more we're sort of invited into the group, and just the better life becomes. We all sort of share the sort of love and support with each other, and it just sort of grows from there.
Love it. I love it. So, Adam, we are doing a webinar on social paralysis, and that is going to be on Friday, the 11th of November, 7:30 p.m. daylight savings time. The cost is $30, so pretty affordable. But the best part about that is 50% of the profits is going towards Movember. And if you're not sure about Movember, I will put a little link in the description. But Movember is really about men's health, preventing suicide, preventable cancers, those kinds of things. So, yeah, I'm going to really encourage, anybody who's interested in this topic to get in, buy a ticket, learn some skills, change your life, and not only that, but make a contribution to the community through donating to Movember. All right. So, Adam, we will see you online in just a few short weeks.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait for it.
All right, mate.
Let's do this.
You're gold. I love it.
Your voice of freedom, standing out by going in, clear the noise, by going through the feelings, you'll make it out by going.